All right, well, for our listeners, this is the Mink and the Monk. Welcome to the show. My name is Brad Monkell. This is my host over here, Matthew Fink. Um, and we are honored to be joined today by the great Andrew Randazzo, a multi-talented musician, but a fantastic bassist for groups like Butcher Brown, Charles Owens Trio. He was on Nigel Hall's last solo album, which I'm a big fan of, and I'm excited to pick your brain about all the different projects you got your hands in. So first of all, thank you for being here. And what's going on in Richmond? Are you down there right now, or have you been on the road a lot?
I'm in Richville. First of all, yeah, thank you, Brad and Matt, for having me. That's really nice things to say so far. Yeah, I'm in Richmond. I'm home. I spend, quite a bit of time at home. The only time I really go on the road is with Butcher Brown. So I've been here in Richmond since we did a little tour in December, like Northeast U.S. quick run in December. But yeah, I've been home, celebrated the holidays with some fam, and just been doing the thing. Had one quick little trip up to New York. And then we've got some travel happening coming up in February. But other than that, been home.
Very cool. Sorry, my cat might be jumping up at random times throughout
What's
this
up,
interview,
baby?
just so you know.
What's
Also,
good,
I
little
think
girl?
and I think your mic might be a little hot actually. I can get some like room noise.
Cut it back a little bit.
Just a little tiny bit. Yeah, yeah, that sounds good.
Cool.
But yeah, man, I mean I've been loving the new project, Triple Trey, that Butcher Brown released last year. And
Cheers. Thank you.
um and it's uh Marcus Tennis Shoe says on the first track that the arrangements are all done by you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Um
correct.
and I was reading on Butcher Brown's website, and for everyone's credits and their instruments, you specifically had composer next to bassist. So, like, do you actually play a role as a composer more than everyone else? Is it a shared thing? Um, or I don't
For
know
Butcher
why.
Brown, that is a shared thing for Butcher. Yeah.
That's what I would have figured, but it said composer for you on the website. So
Well,
do you like are was there a time where you were composing more, or
Um, I might need to check our website and make sure that everything's properly listed. But you know, I I took on the role of arranger for Triple Trey, so I did all the horn charts, and all the arrangements and stuff like that. So that maybe got a little bit lost in translation with whoever wrote composer there, if I'm the only one listed as composer. But for a Butcher Brown record or recording session, we're all composing,
yeah.
and it might start as an idea from one of us, but it's going to be expanded upon by the rest of us. So it's a group effort for sure, always.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
Triple Tray stuff, I did all the horn parts and all the arranging for that. That's a
Um.
unique project for the Butcher Brown world.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a concept to it. Obviously, it's more focused on Tennis Shoes lyrics than I feel like there was more instrumentals in your past albums.
Yes.
And um, did you and Marcus kind of spearhead this album? Was that like part of the idea, or was it just built around those type of songs that lended to you and him being featured?
So Marcus actually released his own version of this album, and it's just called Triple Trey, and it's on Bandcamp. You can go to Tennis Shoes Bandcamp, which is prolific, by the way. But you can hear the original Triple Trey, which is just self-produced, self-written, self-contained. Marcus did the whole thing,
And you also
and
released it as an instrumentals as well, right?
yeah, right. Well, this original version from Marcus is no Butcher Brown, no horns, no nothing. Just him making the beats and rapping. And I have had this big band project, the Randazzo big band, here in Richmond since 2017. And I sort of got in the habit of like I wanted to start to put on these concerts where I featured my friends, my peers, you know. So Marcus, he put out Triple Trey back in 2018, I think, or maybe it was 2019. And I just looked as an opportunity. I said, "Hey, let's do a set. Like, let's do a Marcus set," because I've been wanting to do a set to feature Tennis Shoe, and that could have gone a number of different ways. Like, are you singing or rapping, or are you playing horns, or doing a little bit of all of it? And he was like, "Oh, I just put out this album," and I asked, "Well, what are you doing, a release show?" And he said, "No." So I said, "Let me do this. Let me put some charts together, and we can just have that be the album release show, even though it's not really the album. We'll just use that as like sort of promo for your album, and it'll let me do a show, which is what I like to do. I like to put together shows and write sets of music. So that's how it started. I think that was 2019 that we did that, and it went well, and we just said we should record it because it was literally just going to be a show. So we said we should record it. So we went in the studio. We just put up the money. We covered all the costs on the front end through Butcher Brown, and we just kind of canned it. And then the relationship with Concord started, and we said, "Hey, we got this thing. Would you guys be interested in releasing it?" And long story short, they put it through their machine, and we got a nice big label release for this sort of independently created and funded project back in 2019, pre-COVID. And I think it was Concord's suggestion to also release the instrumentals just for those who want to vibe, because the original concept for this with Marcus is he said, I want to do a project where it's big band and rapping, but like it's not just like a rap song with the band in the background. Like I want them both to be kind of equally featured and like equally be the primary focus at times. So yeah, it's cool that we also released the instrumentals, what you were mentioning, Matt. So people can just appreciate just the horns if they want to, or just the band and the horns.
Yeah, I mean,
I did. Sorry, Brad. I did.
No, you're fine, man.
I listened to it after the fact, and I was like, "Wow, this is it's the same music, but a different vibe altogether."
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and Brad, I know you have a question, so I'm just gonna put this in there. That you're talking about the music. Did you arrange it? You arranged it to the music that Marcus had laid down already, so sort of after the fact.
For the most part, so I had Marcus's album Triple Trey that he produced, just beats and raps and songs, and from that I crafted our arrangements, and they don't stick completely to the original 100%. A lot of them are like, okay, let me just take these beats and see, like, okay, well, that little thing right there could, like, the saxophones could do that nicely, and the trumpets could do this part nicely, and this chord could be like a full band, or like some parts like that were happening. And then the other side of it was like, well, this is just a trap beat, and this is not, it's not really like the sounds in it, the things that make this special. It's not because of the chords or the harmonies, it's because of these sonics, and it's not going to be something that I can reproduce with a big band, so I need to take a different direction. So some of them are like a track like Cusion, for example, is totally different from the original. And I just said, this is a slow burn. Let me just make a nice like harmonic bed for Marcus to sit on top of. That doesn't really have anything to do with the original. But a track like Get Along is like, let me just like take what Marcus did and orchestrate it for this instrumentation that I'm comfortable with.
It's absolutely. One of the vibes I got from it felt like it just felt like a soundtrack to a movie, which kind of makes sense that you wrote it sort of like a soundtrack is written when you have something that you're creating too. So I'm first of all, congratulations on an incredible job of arranging. I was blown away by that right from the get, but it's really interesting that you did it after the fact as sort of a blank canvas. That's really amazing to me. I don't know if you do that a lot or if this was sort of a new venture into that, but that's a very unique take on that. Like I was amazed by that. It was sounded amazing, man. Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I've done a few different projects. I did a project for Charles. You mentioned Charles Owens earlier, Brad. So I mean, he's just a close friend of mine, and I work with him all the time. So it made sense. I said, like, let's do a big band set, and let's just make it a show. And then somewhere in there, it became like, well, of course we should record it. And then it was like, oh, we should record it nicely and multi-track it and mix it and release it. So that's Charles's album, which is called 3 and 13. The second side is like just the set of big band music that I did for him. I got another good friend, Jacob Ungerleider, who is a great singer and songwriter and piano player here in town. Or he was in Richmond. He moved away a few years ago, but that's another set I did where I just said, like, we work together a lot. We're on the same page. Like, I'm doing these big band shows. I need source material. I'm not just trying to compose from thin air. I want to be an arranger. I want to take music that already exists and just like create it and adapt it for this other thing. And so that's another set that I did. I've got a set of like Vince Guaraldi Christmas tunes, which is the one that I do like kind of once a year here in Richmond. I'll do a show, like a holiday show. And I'm working on, I got a couple sets in the making. I like that type of organization where it's like a theme or like a set. It's not just a bunch of tunes, but I do just also have a bunch of tunes. I got in the rhythm of doing, I'll book a show at a club. I'll get the band together and there's going to be 2 sets. And the first set is like this concept and idea. So like the first set is Triple Trey. And the second set, we're just going to like hang out on the set break and get a little loose and have some fun and relax for the rest of the night. That's sort of been my formula since I started. And it's fun. It's like you rehearse, you get things tight, you focus, you're super serious, get the work out of the way, and then have a set break and come back and just have a good time and play some other covers.
Yeah. Do you when you're thoroughly building a set with from an arranging perspective, do you leave specific room for, like, obviously as an arranger you're going to write solo sections, but are there things you do to kind of like you have an arrangement that starts on paper and there are ways to get it like further into the improvisation, or say like, oh, this part of the song we're just going to see what happens and let it go? Like, do you still try to lean really far into going outside of the original arrangement?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just something that that I have to consider while I'm preparing something like this, and just like write it in a way, present the parts in a way that can either allow for that or just like stick to the plan. And for me personally, there's always a plan. We're always erring on the side of it's going to go the way we said it would go. But there's open sections and solo sections and group improv and things like that. And I know who I'm writing for. I know every single one of these 15 musicians really personally. So I know what I can count on them for. I know their strong suits. I know what they need to see, what they don't need to see, what I can put on a paper that's going to bring the best performance out of them is really what I'm always trying to lean towards.
Is there anything that you've found particularly helps you? Are there any like arranging techniques or things you say to a group of ensembles about an arrangement you've made that you feel like really help you get your ideas across?
I should say I try to get everything on the paper.
Okay.
I try to make it so that if we're going to rehearse, I can just set out the sheets and count it off. And there doesn't need to be a lot of explanation up front.
But does that ever include like notes you have to make in the paper? Because some like when I I'm like a pretty amateur composer. I've tried to do it for a while, but I also, like I said, I try to think of like, if I'm going to set it up for a group that's only had a chance or two to play it, I might put in notes of like a stylistic thing that this it was like my idea originally was reminding me of, or a certain signal I might give for like a specific type of solo section? Like, do you ever have to? Is there ever like a deeper explanation you have to give beyond the paper to reach like a certain idea you have? Does that make
Sometimes,
sense?
yeah, sometimes. I think for me, the way that that manifests is like like I know what drummer I'm writing for. I'm either
Okay.
and I only work with really a couple different drummers when I'm doing these arrangements, and it's either going to be Corey Fonville or DJ Harrison.
Mm.
And I know if, like for example, one of my charts I just referenced a Weather Report tune, Havona, because it's got a specific type of light cymbal beat at the top, and that's what I wanted. And I don't have to write it out. I don't have to like come up with some pattern for him to read. I can just say, I know DJ. I know he knows this record as well as I do, and I can just put some slash marks and write Havona style beat, and that's it. That's all I have to do because I know him. Another way that it manifests sometimes is if I want a little improvisation in a hole from a horn player. Like that's a really nice thing that I like to employ. It's not really like a solo, but it's like a measure where there's a hole and it could be a nice spot for like a saxophone lick. But I don't really want a musician like thinking about chord changes or trying to like nail something. I just want some sweet lick. So I might just write sweet lick. And as long as like I know that person and I can trust their ears and their sensibilities, they can just put some slick shit in there and like it's gonna be fine. I don't have to like hold their hand through that. And I don't want to because I don't want some thought out preconceived whatever. I just want a little bit of feeling in there. That sort of stuff makes what I give to people more personal. And it when they're sitting there in their chair, they can see a little bit of our relationship, as opposed to just like, I wrote these parts and like, I don't know, we'll see who's going to play them, or I'm going to send it off to this band, or I'm going to try to sell it to this college. Like that's just, it's not something I'm opposed to, but it's just not ever really what I do. It's like, if I called you for this gig, I'm giving you these pages from me. Like there might as well be a little bow on it and like a name tag, like to you from me, because you're going to see some of those stuff. You're going to see some of that stuff in there.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you leave room for the musicians to be themselves because you can trust them and you know them. But that it seems like adding in features like that with like even brief measures of
Yeah.
letting them make those decisions. It really seems like it would make an arrangement breathe nicely.
And there's even without that stuff, there's gonna be an aspect of that because it's people playing. I realized that studying. I love Count Basie, and I would try to get my hands on like any Count Basie scores that I could, just to be like, what did he put in these parts to make them play that like with such swag and attitude? And the answer is like, well, nothing. Like that's just how they play it. It's because he got that dude to play that line, and he knew that that's how Gonzalez was going to play it, or he knew that's how Harry Carney was going to play that line. He didn't have to write it a certain way. And so, if I know that Charles Owens is sitting 10 or 1, I can write a line and know how he's going to play it. And if it was someone else sitting there, it's going to sound a little different. It's not right and wrong. But if I've got this thing in my mind of like how I want something to sound, a certain attitude, I just know he's going to play like that. And that same thing exists for every single person in every chair, or it ideally should.
Yeah.
It might be your proximity to DC, but your whole philosophy sounds a lot like Ellington.
Definitely.
And I heard that a lot in your arrangements, just the soundscape of doing that. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that's sort of what I was kind of feeling when I was one of the things I was
and I was talking about Ellington musicians just now.
I know you, and Basie. I knew what you meant. I knew when you said Carney, I was like, because I thought you were going to say Thad, or one of those guys that the whole band sounds like it sounds because one of those dudes is out front being who they are.
Yeah, good catch. That's my bad. But
not at all a catch, and nobody will know except maybe the one or two listeners, and one's my mom. She'll know.
Nice.
But other than that,
sorry, Mom.
Well, before we move on from arranging, do you have any other particular arrangers you shout out as like a big influence?
Jacob Mann.
I've heard of him.
I mean, plenty in the past. I love Nelson Riddle.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love Henry Mancini, obviously Ellington and Basie. I mean, the list goes on. Thad Jones, Sammy Nestico, like the classics. Obviously, I went to school. I studied some of this stuff, so I've been through that stuff. I really, really love like the Buddy Rich big band stuff. To me, that stuff is super slick crossover between like that classic old jazz sound and like a newer rock sound that was starting to come out of the 60s and the 70s. And they really, I mean, when you listen to that band, it's insane. And if you listen to like how Buddy Rich was with the band, it makes it make sense. Like how hard he was on those cats. Like that's why it sounds like that. But as far as like these days, I love what Jacob is doing over in Los Angeles. There's lots of great arrangers these days. There's people pushing the boundaries of like what composition can be and like what this art form of arranging for big band can be. But for me, the Jacob stuff is just what I want to vibe to, what I want to put on and just enjoy. And that for me is what I want to put into this world as well. Just I'm not one of those guys who's going to be writing the most extended techniques or harmonically difficult things or technically difficult things, but I just want my shit to feel good. And I want the people on stage to have a good time because that's, I mean, it's the easiest thing to pull off, first of all, because we don't have 3 rehearsals. We have 1 rehearsal, and it's not enough time to get through all of this music, just because of money. Like, that's how it always works. And because of time and schedules, that's just how it goes. It's hard to get people together to do this thing. And so I try to write my stuff to be not like super like elementary and easy, but in a way that's just, you can see it and you can come in, and if you want to have a beer, you can have a beer, and we're just going to have a good time, and you don't need to stress about it. You're going to have a good time, and the audience is going to have a good time, and I'm going to have a good time. That's sort of where I'm coming from, and I hear that in Jacob's music as well. So if you haven't checked out Jacob Mann Greatest Hits volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it goes on.
Yeah, I think
he's
I
just
follow
up
him
to
on Instagram. I don't know.
you definitely check it out. And I mean, he's a friend of mine. He's a great guy, and his stuff, that his just solo produced music as well, is really good. Some of my favorites.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff I do want to touch on.
Let's touch
Um,
it. Let's touch it,
but
bro.
I mean, Matt, did you want to tell Andrew about
Oh,
your funny discovery?
yeah, that it's funny. As this was coming up, I went and kind of listened to uh I think there's how many studio albums are there? 4 for
Uh,
Butcher?
f- for Butcher, well, there's actually a lot, and they're not exactly all properly documented, and they kind of run together. I'm going to say there's more than 4.
Okay. So I started with Triple Trey, and
Hmm.
so I started with the most recent and then worked my way back. And well, there's a lot I was fascinated by with just the the direction of the band. It's actually, and I think, yeah, it's just everyone does sound different, but it seems like they all arrive at Triple Trey as as seemingly a really interesting point of departure from what the other stuff sounds like.
Yes.
But long story short, or long story long, this might be longer. I'll just so about 10 years ago, um, I was doing a master's degree, and I had made a post on this Jam of the Week. I don't know if you were ever
Oh
in
yeah.
in that. Yeah, yeah.
Shout out to Farnell.
Farnell. Yeah, and I think it just ended, right? He ended it, or
I don't know.
yeah, he was just
Sorry, Farnell.
no,
Yeah,
no, but it was
apparently they're stopping. Yeah.
yeah, it just it was a good long run. But anyway, somebody reached out to me and started asking me these questions about or just whatever, playing over changes, or some questions about playing guitar, and then reference to like this album that I had made that maybe I whatever I was just an odd thing to mention. I was so we talked back and forth, and then I just sort of forgot about it, and then I'm going through your different musicians in your band, and I recognized the name, and it turns out this was Morgan Burrs in high school, like in 2013.
Nice.
And it was very nice to talk with him then, and I just remembered the name, and I just reached out to him I think 2 days ago, and I was like, "This is you, right?" And it was just so hilarious to pick up because we both reread the messages, and it was like it was 2013, so he was basically in high school, I think. Really funny that it all kind of worked out this way 10 years later.
That is funny.
Yeah, and he's a lovely dude and a great player, man. I just didn't even realize when I watched you guys did like an NPR thing, the Tiny Desk. I didn't realize, and then there's another video where you seem like you recorded live all of the tracks from Triple Trey with the band. I wasn't sure if that was a playback or if that was all done live, but you have the full band behind.
That was live.
Amazing. And then so just to hear him play was like the only thing I had seen prior to that was like there was a video. I think he's playing with some members of his family. But this is back in it was literally 2013. So I just thought Small World really funny to how this path seems to like how you make your way in the world and who you bump into.
It is a small world.
Yeah. It feels like we bump into a lot of those kind of things doing our interviews. But I mean, have you guys or just you personally had any experience to tour up around? I mean, we're like in like the Woodstock, New York, Albany, New York area. Have you guys gotten to play venues around there?
So
You're gonna be at the Blue Note in May. I see that Morgan had mentioned that, but that's a little bit south of where we are. Yeah,
that'd be New York City. I have been to Albany a few times, and I've been to Woodstock, but actually not to play with Butcher Brown. Butcher Brown did like just stay in Albany one time, and it was beautiful. But I went up there with a singer named Natalie Prass, who used to live in Richmond. She's now in Nashville. But that's my only playing experience up there. You know, she did like a radio thing in Woodstock, and we did a show in Albany. I wish I could remember the name of the venue, but I can't. But I'm sure it's, it's in our future.
I doubt that venue's still open, but maybe it is. I don't know. A lot of things are changing over up there, it seems.
Yeah.
Now, as far as things with Charles have been going, have you guys been very active with your live shows recently? Has there been any big new developments with Charles?
Well, Charles is, he is a gigger. He is a teacher and a gigger, and that's what he does. He teaches music lessons by day, and he plays gigs by night. And so he's constantly keeping not just me, but lots of bass players and drummers and guitar players and piano players in the area working. He hustles just as many opportunities as he can around Richmond and Charlottesville. I was in Charlottesville with him last night. We have a string of clubs here called the Common House, which is sort of it's like a fancy bar restaurant kind of vibe. There's one in Richmond and one in Charlottesville, and I'll play up in there with him. We've got a new-ish club called Brune here in Richmond. I played there last Friday with Charles. But the Charles thing is interesting because I've been playing with him for so long. And when we first met, I was really just a upright bass player in school. That's what I was doing. And I was trying to play jazz. And so I'd go up to New York with him, like do the Smalls gigs. And, we had some like straight ahead-ish types of gigs down here for a while with this piano player named Steve Kessler and Devon Harris on drums. And then as I sort of transition into being more of a bass guitar player, I sort of transitioned to doing that with Charles, and it sort of shifted the vibe and the repertoire a little bit, and the band changed, and DJ moved over to keys, and we got Kelly Strawbridge on drums for a while. And lately, for the past couple of years, I've been playing more hybrid guitar, like bass six style instrument. And so that's what I do with Charles a lot of the time now, which can be trio or quartet or anything. It sort of opens up the possibility of how I can support. So with Charles, he's always just got gigs and shows, and that affords me the opportunity to not only work, but also, get reps in with this material that we develop. And every once in a while, we just take whatever we've been doing, whatever tunes are in rotation, and we go into the studio and lay it down. And that's where his albums come from.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we got a recording coming up. We're going to go in the studio in March and sort of like have it's almost like a little check-in every once in a while. We were in the studio last year with the quartet, which was myself on upright bass, Daniel Clark on piano, Brian Caputo on drums, and that album is called Golden Moments. It's a La Reserve release. Kind of more of a straight ahead thing, but the repertoire is like more rock, like 70s, 80s, like kind of rock influence. So we'll have another session in March, and that's just kind of how it goes. Like every year or two, we'll just go in the studio and lay down what we've been working out on the live gigs and send it out into the world and start working on some new music.
Yeah, very
Both
cool.
are composing for this, or it's all Charles's, or
There's rarely any originals from anybody but Charles.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
there will be some originals from Charles, but a lot of times it's just tunes. The tunes that we gravitate towards. Some Beatles tunes, some standards, some other sorts of things.
Cool.
Now, outside of the repertoire you have to learn for that group, are you like a big standards guy? Do you really enjoy just like trying to cram as much of the Great American Songbook as you can into your head? Do you like going to jam sessions in places like Smalls, or is that not so much your
I
cup of tea?
It was for a time, for sure. Obviously, like going to music school, when I went to music school, it was you can either study jazz or classical. And I was studying the jazz music. So I was trying to gig, I was trying to work, I was trying to be versatile. And I didn't want to bring my real books all over the place to gigs. And I started to realize like these tunes that people are calling, they're not even in this book anyway. So I just kind of started to make my own book and learn tunes by ear, because I always thought that was like the way. And so for a time, I was really I had a regimen every day of learning new tunes and practicing tunes and, transposing and trying to get things in 12 keys and be able to know every melody. As a bass player, that's important, but not all of us really do it for every tune.
Guilty.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most, for me, what I always say is like, if you don't know the melody and the chord changes and the form, you don't quite know the whole thing. You can look at a chord chart, but that's sort of just like part of the picture. It's like reading some, like a Spanish book or something. If you don't speak Spanish, you might be able to kind of say the words, but you can't really give it what it needs unless you know what it means. So yeah, these days, if I'm learning tunes, if I'm making time for myself to learn new stuff, it's probably not standards that I'm working on these days. But there was a time when I wanted to have a huge list and be able to roll into any gig and just know any tune that anyone was going to call. But that was really a process of paying attention to what people were calling and playing those gigs where we were playing standards the whole time, which I just don't do so often anymore.
Yeah. Now, I mean, so we're well versed in jazz, and your Butcher Brown crew is so. You guys get props from the jazz community, you get props from the hip hop community. I'm sure you guys are, you're rubbing elbows with the pop crowd. You guys know everybody. You fit into different boxes, and you guys have that versatility that lets you do that. But where do you get the most snobbery from? Who comes at you from like the weirdest angle where they're like trying to box you in? Is it like do hip hop people not understand where you're coming from more, or
I don't know, man. I don't know really if I really have a good answer for that question. I don't feel like I feel that from anybody. And part of it might just be my attitude of just like, if you're giving off that vibe, I'm just going to ignore it because I don't care. I don't know that we get snobbery from people. We definitely get props from people. And I don't know, maybe it's all behind our back, or maybe I'm just not picking up on that part of what's happening out there.
Well, it's only so useful, I guess, to talk about like the genre, but I just mean, I guess I mean like more so in the communities when you see people like talking smack online about what something real like what is authentically a style of a certain thing. But you guys don't even really seem to try to shoot for a specific style. That's the thing, also, man.
Yeah, we don't. We don't. We like
Yeah,
to say that our genre is solar. It's solar music
I like
because
that.
it's for everyone under the sun, and it's because it's just there's something in there that pretty much everyone can appreciate. You know, there's not really much of a country western element to what we do. There's not really much of I don't know, like a classical approach to what we do. But other than that, like if you like music, you can probably find something in our show that you're going to enjoy because we all five of us are as much on the same page as we are diverse and on different pages. And I'm into what I'm into, and everyone has that thing. And there's cross sections of our influences for sure, but we've all got our different areas and frankly our different hustles, like the way that we move through this world. Because none of the five of us are just in the band Butcher Brown. Like we all do a bunch of different things, and we all are making our way as musicians. So we've got to be versatile in different ways. So you know, I have played country gigs and country rock gigs and top 40 gigs and you know, Devon is producing for lots of different artists. You know, sometimes I hear a track that DJ produced, and it's like this. I would not have known, even though I know him so well and his tracks so well. It's he can sort of chameleon into what something needs. And you got someone like Corey who's like on the worldwide jazz scene. You know, hitting with the people who are at the forefront of that genre. Morgan, you know, playing guitar and producing for West Coast artists. Marcus, you know, writing his own music all the time and has been forever. And you know, putting on his own shows, whether it's a rap show or an instrumental show or a mix of both. So we've all just kind of got our different lanes, but it all comes together for this thing. And I think that's what sort of contributes to the solar sound.
Okay. Do you think is that solar sound, is there an aspect of the Richmond sound in that? Is there something you think of when you think of Richmond, if, as far as sonic qualities go?
Now that's a hard one for me to answer because if there is an answer, I probably take it for granted. But I think that, you know, if you look at the people that have spent time in Richmond or come out of Richmond, there's a little bit of a common thread. I mean, there's amazing musicians in Virginia, and Virginia Beach especially has an amazing like history of musicians who are either from there or live there for a while. Like we've got Pharrell and Missy Elliott, and then also Victor Wooten lived in Hampton, and you know, Richmond, we claim people like D'Angelo and Nate Smith. And there's lots of amazing people that have come out of Virginia for sure. The sound, I think, is, if I had to categorize it, I think it's more of a focus on feeling rather than like, I don't know, crazy, like harmonic, whatever, pushing boundaries. It's more, we're more pushing the boundaries of how good can we make this feel. Like those are the walls that we want to break down. Maybe you've heard these chords before, but have you ever really heard them make you feel this way? You know, that's sort of, I feel like that's, you listen to D'Angelo and it's like, man, it just feels so crazy when you listen to it, and it just like it instills a mood and an emotion in you. And I feel the same thing when I hear Nate Smith play drums. It's like those beats are just infectious, you know. And so for me, I feel like being a Richmonder, living in Richmond, working with other Richmond musicians, it's like it's about just the feeling deep under all the other stuff that we're doing. I think probably that boils down to something beyond music. It's just something about what it feels like to live here, what it feels like to be in touch with the landscape and the like the river here, and just the speed of life here is definitely slower than what you'll find in New York or Los Angeles or even like Atlanta or New Orleans. It's different. It's a little bit slower paced. It's a little bit more southern in that. There's a lot of church going on around here, so there's definitely that aspect to it. And yeah, I think generally the attitude amongst the musicians on the scene here is very welcoming and very much like, well, I think it can kind of come down to a situation like a jam session where you have a young musician who's not really cutting it. Okay, well, like, how many different ways are there to handle that situation? And not that one is right and one's wrong, but whereas in this scene over here, you might get vibed, and that'll make you go home and like shed until your fingers fall off, and that makes you amazing. Here in Richmond, it's more like, let's figure out what it is that you can do, and let's do that. Like, let's figure out a way to make this work for everybody.
I mean, find a tune that beginners can play too, so they can get in on it.
Right? Yeah, you know, we've got this great jam session here in Richmond called the Roots Jam, which is it's curated by my buddy Calvin Brown, and it's been going on for a number of years. We took a nice long COVID break, but we're back into it now, and you know, just seeing how that session evolved and sort of took on its own identity over the years really, I think, speaks to like the vibe here in Central Virginia, which is, you know, people come up in there and just like they're not, it's not jazz musicians. Maybe it's a church musician, and or maybe it's someone who just like knows a couple tunes on guitar. But the vibe of that is like, we just have to find, where do we intersect? Like, we need to quickly look at this Venn diagram of our musical abilities and find what's in the middle, because they're waiting for us to play some music right now. And the DJ can only play but so many tracks while we figure out what we're going to do. So having that as sort of the impetus of like, you got to make something happen. Like, you're on the list, you're on stage, you're not getting off stage. Okay, do you know Santeria by Sublime? Because I know that one, and like the drummer can follow along, and like let's do that or something, you know. Or you want to play a jazz standard? Do you know Red Clay? No, you don't know that one. Well, do you know So What? Like, let's find one that will work even if you don't really know it.
Yeah, I would say that's more the speed of jam sessions up here. But yeah, like you get into smalls in the city, things get a little more hardcore, which you know, I don't discount the usefulness of people being mean for inspiration, but it's not necessarily the way I would like to do things.
It's just different. It's different. I had definitely had someone say to me before I learned the tune Inner Urge by Joe Henderson, what was said to me was, "You don't know Inner Urge?" And then what was said was, "I should pull out my gun and shoot you right now." And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work for me. I think I'm going to move to Richmond.
Inner Urge, not maybe like take the A train, but even then, relax.
Yeah, that's a true story.
Yeah, that's
there's different strokes for different folks. But
yeah,
when I moved to Richmond, I was welcomed with open arms. Now, part of that was that they needed bass players down here. There's an amazing bass player that we have here named Matt Hall, who's an incredible musician and bass player. And within a year of me moving to town, he moved away for a time. So there was a nice big hole in the scene for me when I got here. And I was not oblivious to that fact. I saw him while he was here for a few months, and then he left, and I said, this is my opening. So I need to step up and like take all the gigs I can and just try to be cool and just take the advice of all my older peers and try to just fit this like peg in this hole real quick.
It's interesting, man, because I spent the majority of the 90s in the city, and there was at least two distinct feels, and I always gravitate. I've thought about this a lot throughout the course of my life, but I always gravitated towards the scene in Harlem, which is where I spent most of my time playing, and there was always support. What you're talking about, there was in that scene.
That's great.
If you could play, then the whole audience would let you know, and if you couldn't, they would also let you know. But there was a vibe of you were there to play for an audience, and for the whole goal of it was to feel good.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, and when I used to, there's a couple of things as you're talking that I thought of. I used to do a session here. I'm south of Brad a little bit, about 75 miles, so in between New York and Albany. But I used to do a session here, and my favorite part about this, we built it up for a couple of years, and then it ended up just dissolving, but was the vibe, the hang every week was so nice to see, like, a lot of the same returning folks.
Yeah.
And then there were other musicians who were kind of vibey that were like, give you shit for, say, not using them in the house band or kind of things. It had nothing to do with it. It was just this vibe of I loved seeing the same people every week, having a drink, catching up. How's things going? Some guys were straight ahead working pros that had the night off, came in. Other guys were people that had struggled with autumn leaves and wanted a place to try it. Yeah. And then there were the age bracket was from anywhere from 14 to 15 years old. And up to probably the oldest guy then was a guy named George De Leon, who is a great saxophonist, but also a therapist who would he would help people with addiction, and he had been doing it for like 50 years. So there was this whole vibe of just music being the central focus, but everybody connected. And when in New York, that was a harder thing to come by for me anyway. But in Harlem, it wasn't. I played in organ clubs, and that was the greatest feeling on earth, where you could, like, they wanted you'd play everything from gospel to blues and R&B and everything in between, but it all had this vibe. And it's hard to find that. I don't know. It sounds like maybe I have to take a trip to Virginia.
Virginia's great, and having the Roots Jam here is a great thing, because we missed it while I was gone, because when it was in full swing, it was like, oh, you've just moved to Virginia, you want to get in the scene, this is going to be a breeze for you, and it's happening next Monday. You come to this place, pay the cover, come in and hang, and you're going to meet a bunch of people that is going to just kickstart your involvement in the scene here. An awesome part is, like, getting the privilege of going on the road with Butcher Brown, meet lots and lots of other bands and other musicians who are doing what we're doing, where you go out on the road and they're going to come through Richmond, and maybe they're going to be here on a Monday, and hey, like, what better way to bring you into our city and our scene than to invite you to this awesome thing that happens once a week.
And you're the house player in that?
I sometimes am.
Okay.
I sometimes am. These days it's difficult for me schedule wise because of another weekly gig that I have. I play like a piano trio gig once a week over in Charlottesville, with the aforementioned Daniel Clark on piano and Brian Caputo on drums. And that group is really special. That's something that we've been curating for a number of years now. Just like to work closely with a piano trio is a really special thing. And I've always really gravitated towards piano trio music, especially like Oscar Peterson Trio has always just been some of my favorite recorded music ever. And it just the, to get to work in that medium with the same guys a lot. And also, everything shut down for COVID. And this gig was the first one to come back. So for a while, it was like, I've got one gig a week and that's all I'm doing. And I was doing other things at home and, like content creation for Butcher Brown, and we had our recording projects that we were doing. But as far as going out and playing, this was it, man. And this was it for all three of us. So it became this really special thing because of the timing. So that's a really important like musical pillar in my life these days. And that's Monday nights, which is when the Roots Jam is. So I can hit it on the way home, I can leave the gig and get back to Richmond in time to catch the back half of the jam, but it sort of prevents me from being the guy that's the house bass player. But previously, I did do it quite a bit. I pulled double duty actually with both gigs because the timing used to work out a little bit better. And me and my buddy Jacob, the piano player and singer, we would go to the club in the afternoon, set up all our gear, and then ride over to Charlottesville together, play the gig. He used to be the piano player on that gig, play the gig, and then just like hightail it back, find a parking spot as quick as we could and run upstairs and start the gig. And then for just a short time pre-COVID, I helped run a couple of them, like as sort of in charge guy when Calvin was out of town. So I was definitely like way up in there pre-COVID. And since it's started back up, I've tried to be at as many as I can just to make sure I'm participating and supporting it, because I know how special of a thing it was and how special it has the chance to be again if everybody gives it the proper support and is, doing this stuff.
And how's your playing on Inner Urge? Everything okay?
Dude, that guy shot me and it hurt so bad. And so I just practiced really hard while I was in the hospital, and I came out the other side, and now I can play Inner Urge really, really well.
Fantastic. And you're doing, just as a side note, that's all upright? No, or are you playing electric on the piano, specifically the piano trio one?
The piano trio gig is an upright gig.
Got you. I figured as much when you say Oscar Peterson.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that we always play that style, but for me, it's always been a thing where it's like, it's really awesome to have a weekly gig on upright bass, because it means it has to come out of the case at least once a week. I don't always make the time, admittedly, to shed as much as I should. And during those years after school where I didn't have that, there was definitely months that went by where I was only playing bass guitar, which is not a bad thing, but that's just not, it was never my intention to let it sit like that. So it's really great to have that chance once a week. And also that gig it's about more than just the music. It's about the scene that we've created over there and the people that come, and about that room and the way that room is set up and that piano. And it's just always been that. And we kind of go for more of like a Meldau vibe with the trio. Like that's more stylistically, it's closer to that than like an Oscar Peterson trio or even like a Bill Evans trio for that matter. It's closer to like a modern jazz piano
Your
trio.
repertoire spans a lot more, for lack of a better word, genres.
I think we definitely span genres, and we get into some like actually some kind of funny stuff, and we're all kind of like a little quirky, and that quirkiness like comes out because we all are like that. So I don't know, it's always a good time. It's never very serious. Like it's hooting and hollering most of the time, which is what I like.
What are your favorite examples of humor in music?
Geez, it's hard to say. I feel like it's not something that I've experienced so much with recorded music, but more so like in the moment. Like when you have a musician who's really like got their shit together, they can express a range of emotions. And I don't know, if you're just a silly dude, like it's gonna come out if you're good enough on your instrument. And the thing about that band in particular is all three of us are just so open to like, we don't know what's gonna happen from tune to tune or night to night. And like, it's an openness that everyone is just down with, that sometimes things just end up being pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I love that natural chemistry on the gig and being like lighthearted. I know players who have like comedic timing within the music, like a drummer who can play a fill like underneath their backbeat where you can kind of, they're like acknowledging something that happened in the room. Like I love those kind
Yes.
of special moments in the music, but I'm also like one of my favorite composers of all time is Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
And although it's not like it doesn't
I
like hit in the same way as like a modern joke or something. It's like it's not like a one-to-one funny thing, but he's got like a silliness to him and an attitude about not taking the music too seriously that I love. And
Yeah, I love that. I love playing like that, and it's kind of the only way I know how to play because it's the only way I know how to be.
yeah,
And it's not that it doesn't like rub up against other musicians when they take themselves really seriously. I can be appropriate, but I'm sort of also the guy. Well, I feel like when you once you get to playing music, whether you're good or bad or a beginner or an expert, like your personality is gonna come through because you're still like a human touching a tool at the end of the day. How good you are at playing those frets or that board or those keys, like that's a little bit separate from like what your personality is like. So you could hand me a saxophone right now, and like I can't play the saxophone, but you'll hear a little bit of my personality in how I deal with the difficulty of making a sound on this horn or a trumpet or something. So like you can give a kid a guitar who doesn't know how to play it, but you'll see their personality and what they do with it. And that doesn't ever go away.
yeah,
And mix that with the fact that I'm sort of like, I've got like a dry sense of humor and I can be really sarcastic. And then at the same time, I'm not the best at like warming up to people. Like I just sort of like come, if we're meeting for the first time, I'm not going to really tone my personality back too much. And that sometimes rubs people the wrong way, but I'm okay with that. And I feel like that can come out in my music a little bit when I play. But when you get a group of guys that are on the same page from a personality standpoint, and me and Daniel and Brian can go have a beer or have dinner or just talk and hang, and it doesn't get old. And we're we can vibe together. So when we play, it's like that.
yeah,
And it comes down to if I really want to break it down to like specific things, it's like, oh, I fucked up that chord change.
laugh
Well,
about it. Yeah,
what are we gonna do? Like, it's done. What are you gonna get mad about it? Or like, oh, I don't know this tune. Well, we're playing it anyway, so like,
yeah,
let's see what happens. Or like, we're in the middle of a tune and oh, let's do something else. It doesn't mean we have to finish this tune. Like, let's just talk about something else. It's like as close to just a hang as you can get while you're holding your instruments. Because if you're hanging with someone like and you're just done talking about someone, change the subject, and that sort of thing happens on that gig, and it's really unique and fun. And we don't have any recorded music, and we don't have any plans to record an album. And the joke is, the longer we wait, the better it'll sound.
yeah. Um, well, I guess on a similar topic to the humor in the music and the different kinds of hangs you get into. I'm an amateur stand-up comedian.
Yes,
And
I've seen a little bit of this.
I'm
Bless
big,
you. Bless you.
I'm a big nerd about the art form.
Dude,
And
I love it. I love it.
well, I mean, there's a lot about it. I'm love to talk to if you'd like to share some of your opinions. But one thing that a lot of comedians talk about is like, oh, I love a venue where the ceilings are low, or they talk about the ways the wait staff handle things and all these different things that kind of make the room click right for the energy of their set and how they connect with the audience. Is there anything that you feel like for coming into a gig really sets you in a comfortable place to improvise and communicate with the audience and gives you a comfortable setting to play in?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends on the venue for sure. It depends on like what type of gig is this, because like I can talk about playing a piano trio gig at the Oakhurst Inn, which is what I do every Monday, and I know all the staff because I've been working there for a time. But if there's someone new, my first move is to find out your name and try my best to remember it. I'm big into trying to remember people's names because everyone will just say, "Oh, I'm so bad with names," and I'm like, "It's because you're just not. You don't care about getting good at it."
Guilty again.
Offense. No offense.
No, but you're not wrong. But I'm
skill.
Gonna admit it. I'm also guilty.
It's just skill, and there are techniques to remembering people's names, and I'm just into that because when people remember my name, it's like, oh, that feels amazing, and like I want to do that for people too. So that's my first move is like, what is your name? And also with that, the gig is 5:30 to 8 every Monday, and at 5:31, like maybe we'll start playing, but there might just be like one or two people there. So like, let's talk to them. It doesn't have to be this like audience musician thing. I mean, we're just in the corner set up playing some music. So that's a real personal style gig. And like a lot of times I know at least half the people in there anyway, because they come all the time. Being on the road with Butcher Brown is a different thing. Cause like we're walking to a venue that holds 300 people. And like, I'm not going to introduce myself to every single one of them before we play the show, because that would just be that takes away a certain element of the show,
but also gives everybody COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? Which is a favor, because if you haven't had it already, here you go.
Welcome.
Have fun with these antibodies.
Prove on this.
But, I have spent a lot of time around musicians that thrive in the touring scene, and you see some like parallels between them. And one thing is like every crew member, you're introducing yourself and trying to remember their name and addressing them by name every time. And it's not like, hey, monitor guy. It's, hey, Alex. And if you don't remember his name, like, go ask someone what his name is. Or, you know what I mean? This is the hospitality person. Remember their name. This is the venue manager. Or like, this is the valet parking guy. Like, talk to him for 2 minutes and just try to find some common ground. For whatever reason, people that thrive in the touring music industry like have that in common, is that they're remembering people's names and just making a little tiny relationship with them every time.
Yeah.
And that just goes such a long way. And it feeds on itself, because the more you do it, the more you're good at it. And people love it when they can feel like, oh yeah, that band, like that guy in that band was cool. I remember him. As opposed to just like, what are you talking about? Butcher who? So there's definitely that aspect of, you're walking into a new club, have your process of what are you doing? How are you treating these people? Because it's going to go good or bad or somewhere in between. So you might as well start off with trying to make it good.
It's funny because when we started this interview, you called us both by our first names, which I remember.
Oh yeah,
I thought about it immediately.
Brad and Matt.
Brad and Matt.
And
Matt
then Damon and Brad Pitt.
Shit,
that's the way. That's my way.
That's a first and the last.
Ocean's 11.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'll remember to help me remember Brad's name is what you said in previous question when you said the terms, I'm a human with a tool. I'll always think of Brad now, just as a human with a tool. Yeah, that's how I'm going to remember.
You can think of me as a human who is a tool.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we got it covered now.
And you're never going to forget this day.
Never, ever. No, it's coming with me to the grave.
Now, besides your love, I love the attitude, the pleasantness with the people working at the club. I hear a lot of things like that. Do you have now personally yourself backstage alone in the bathroom? Do you have like a pre-show ritual? Down a Gogurt and whisper a prayer to your bass? Like what do you do with your gear and your diet? Like what makes you feel like you've done your pre-show ritual?
Yeah, that has evolved over time a lot, and it's continually changing, and it just has to do with what I'm doing in my life. Sometimes what I really need is just like a meditation session. I need 15 minutes of nothing, like purposeful nothing. Sometimes that can really help me. Sometimes I need dinner. Sometimes I need to eat a huge meal. and a glass of wine, and that's great too. You know, I get why that's not a good thing for a lot of people before they go on stage, but for me, it just sort of like it can help sometimes. Sometimes I don't want any food. Sometimes I would like a beverage. Sometimes I don't want that. I think that just kind of I have to read myself like throughout the time. But you know, being on the road with Butcher Brown, one thing that I think really helps and adds to the show, and I think that this can apply to anybody who's playing with a certain group of people over and over again. Like if you're on tour with a band, or if you're working with a band once a week or something like that, having at least a portion of time where you're just spending some time together, like conversing and shooting the shit, not talking about music or the set, just hanging and like making that personal connection, even if you've known them for a decade, you know, just having that time to just like chill. Maybe it's listening to some music or talking about a thing that happened or whatever you're into. Because, you know, the way that our touring situation used to work on a Butcher Brown trip is I was always the guy who's really anal about like, we have to make as much money on merchandise as possible. So somebody has to be there out there at all times. And like, it usually just ended up being me because I was the one that was so like annoying about it. So like, I'm going to go out to the merch table. Okay, we're done setting up. I'm just going to go sit there until it's time to play. And like, it didn't actually end up with us making that much more or selling that much more merch. And when I started ditching that, or when we started to get someone else to do that entirely and I could spend the time in the back, I started hearing the guys say like, oh, this is so much better, like that you're just hanging before the show as opposed to like working every second and like being salesman dude until you have to go and like sort of be vulnerable on stage. So for me, it's better just to relax. I think that's what it really comes down to, is finding a way to relax before going on stage.
And to tie in with that, earlier I was looking for a King Butch T-shirt. You only had smalls available, so you might want to get whoever's now doing this to check it out because
Where? What website?
on the website, yeah. And I don't know if you can tell from where you're sitting, but a small is not happening for me.
Yeah, no, it's not.
But I wanted to give you the $29.
You're at least a medium.
At least in me. Well, I mean, if my midriff is exposed, I'm not gonna lie. In certain states, probably not Virginia, but up here it works. Down there it won't.
Dude,
So
Richmond's very accepting of all midriffs.
then I definitely have to come there. I mean, everything else was very inviting, but now that I can just be myself.
I've got a few crop tops. You can borrow one of mine.
Shit. All right.
That's the new thing now. All the tops are getting so cropped, Matt. It's good we found this for you.
Yeah. I mean, this would work, but I would cut Aretha's face off, but we can't. We can't do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, I like that you're a stand-up comedian, Brad. I like that you do both because I've always felt like not only am I just a fan of the art form, but you find that a lot of stand-up comedians are also musicians, and musicians oftentimes think that they're funny. That's something that I heard Dave Chappelle say a long time ago, and it's so true. And like every time that if I'm watching a comedian or like a set of stand-up, I just see so many parallels between that world and the music world, both from like the sort of creative side and like, you know, you got to come up with ideas and like adapt them and perfect them and work on them, and you got to hit the shed and you got to have your routine and like your timing is the most important thing. But then also like what you're talking about, how it's like you're in a club with a microphone and a monitor and you're dealing with staff, and like there's so many parallels that I've just always seen those two things as being like just sibling art forms over the years.
I mean, even other art forms remind me of it in different ways. There's so many parallels. Like if you were to consider podcasting an art form, there's little parallels that hit me. But I do particularly love especially the the kinship between like improvised music and attempting to put a set together, because it's like improvised music. You have songs that you're improvising around, and then I write jokes, but I'm trying to, I don't know about every comedian, but I like to kind of improvise my way around the jokes, into the jokes, and create a thing. And I think of them similarly. And part of what I was thinking about before when we were talking about your arranging and the way you're crafting your sets and trying to create things that push the music forward within how you're conceptualizing the set. I feel like doing comedy has kind of reoriented how I think about putting together a set. Like when I try to do a set for comedy, I'm trying to make every second count. I have, I don't want there to be dead air. I want to know where I'm going next.
Yeah, and you
That's
guys
like,
do like a 3-minute set, and that's like a thing, which
yeah,
is crazy to me.
5 is like the most common around where I'm at. There's a great show called Kill Tony where they pull out random people to do 1 minute
Yeah,
sets.
1 minute set. Like what? But it's
Yeah.
it's the thing. Like you can get plenty. You can cram some stuff in there, which is wild.
It
Well,
also
what I
trims
want,
the fat because you can't
Yeah,
say, "Hey, how's everybody doing?" and all that BS. Like you get right to the punch. You got to get right to the setup and the punch, or else you're gonna get booed pretty quick.
I've been hearing about this Kill Tony. I need to
Oh,
check it out.
it's amazing. I highly
Is this a
recommend it.
podcast or YouTube show or what?
It's like a live podcast. I mean, it's great to watch on YouTube. It's great to see it.
I'm gonna
But
check that out.
it's like my favorite show. It taught me a lot about stand up. I love the comedians they have on, but the band is killer.
Oh, okay, cool.
The band
Okay.
is amazing. Their bass player D Madness is the shit. So,
Oh, okay. Wow, I gotta check that out. You
and
know,
also, as long as we're on that subject, shout out. I don't know if you saw that, Brad, but Michael Lair passed.
yes, I did see that.
And so he was an amazing comedian who was on that show, tore it up every time he was on, and he
wow,
passed away. He was sick for a while, but I just read it this morning. So just a side note that probably stopped the forward motion of whatever we were doing. So I apologize.
Well,
nice. That's
Well,
great. Yeah, gotta give tribute.
An
yeah,
amazing human.
he had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, for I think 7 years. And he was like a regular on the show. For every episode, he would do like a 1 minute set. But
Mm.
for him, it's so hard to get jokes out with ALS. But
Yeah,
I think
wow.
Sometimes it was a 3 to 5 minute set, and he killed. It was unbelievable. He was so it was so fearless because sometimes as someone who's watching it, you start to feel bad that a man is struggling. He didn't take any prisoners, man. He did not. He just went out there and brought it, and it was what that show's about. Just love what you do and get to it and figure it out.
That's great. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Do you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, this whole like seeing these two parallels started for me when I was young, and I saw that Dave Chappelle Block Party
Yeah, man.
because it was like stand-up comedians and musicians are putting this show on, and I remember seeing Braylon Lacey, who's playing bass for Erykah Badu, and I saw Hub, who's playing bass for The Roots, and I was like kind of playing bass at the time. And when I came out of the movie theater, I was like, I have to do that. Like, I have to figure out how to make this what I do with my life, because like what Dave did for that was so special. And just the whole thing. And I've always been a fan of like any type of performance or show or something, production where there's lots of people involved. Like I love that, which is why I love big band stuff, which is why I love musical theater and opera and like going to the orchestra concerts, because it's just the more people, the better for me. Just that aspect of it brings such a cool thing when there's a crew and 60 musicians and like staff, and like it's always been, for whatever reason. And to see him do something like that, I was like, I gotta figure out how to just be a professional musician, and like I want to be on big stages like that. And we had sort of a full circle moment, or I sort of had a full circle moment last summer going out to Napa for the first Blue Note Festival, which was hosted by Dave. And it was like, it had that energy. It had that block party energy of just like, there's musicians here, there's music lovers here, there's stand-up comedians here, there's athletes and like other, you know, people that are in the public eye here just coming together for this thing, and super special. So yeah, I've always just, for whatever reason, there's just this parallel.
You're right.
It
Yeah, I'd
it like
agree with that.
it.
Absolutely.
I feel like there's room like within the two. Like it teaches me about being more attentive with the audience. I mean, there's lessons I've had over the years with trying to connect with an audience. Like Victor Wooten has a passage in his book, The Music Lesson, about like connecting with the audience in a nonverbal way. And there's all these, you
Yes.
hear so many different abstract things about connecting with the audience. But like, I'm, a, I don't know about you, but as a bass player, I don't really know what to like do in the back line of the band, especially in a bigger band, to like, who do I look at? What do I do with my, usually I'm not so intuitive with that stuff, but I feel like doing open mics, it's made me think more recently on my own shows. I want to make, one thing I want to do is I want to tell my musicians don't stop playing. So I want no dead air. I want like to have to go from song to song.
Yeah.
And when mistakes inevitably happen, I want there to be not only improvised music in there, but I want to make myself have to talk to the audience. I don't want to do stand-up comedy for them, but I feel like just talking to the audience and looking at them during a musical set and
Yeah.
being open, like in a stand-up set, when something happens in the room, the best thing you can do is address it. And I feel like
Yeah.
being able to just talk to the audience while I'm leading my band and putting myself in that position from doing stand up, I feel like that's like it's made me start to think like that's one way I can like really force myself to be just in the moment with the room. And like you said, like talk, like not only talking to the people before, I want to do that. I want to, connect with a small room, but I want to make myself also during the performance that keyed in with them. And stand up comedy has influenced me to do that, but it's that's a hard thing I feel like to get across. I guess to set the
That
vibe, like you were saying, like the block
that
party.
is hard. Yeah. Well, I think one big difference between stand up and music is actually, it doesn't have to be such a big difference, but finding the way to get to it with music is a little harder, because if you're crafting a stand up set, like you can't exactly just shed at home and then go on stage and kill it. Like you need to you need to bomb, and you need to you need to use the audience to figure out what these bits are supposed to be. Like you can't do it without an audience.
Yeah,
Going and doing short sets every night is hitting the shed. And that, like I do try to think about like where's the parallel with playing music. And well, there's the aspect of like just getting on the mic and talking to the crowd in between songs, which is actually like on the nose, like really similar. And you're just not, you can't practice that. You have to do lots of shows to get comfortable talking on the mic. But there's also, I think that there's a musical element of like thinking about who's listening, like who's picking up what I'm putting down, and like how is that going to affect what I choose to do. And for me, I think the simplest way that it manifests is like if I've got an amazing musician that I respect, that I know is in the audience, whereas maybe at a time, or maybe for some people it would make you play worse or make you nervous or make you try to like impress them. For me, I've found myself lately more just feeling like, oh, this is great, because like this person's here and like they're gonna understand everything that's going on. So like I'm free to do the things that they're gonna appreciate. So yeah, who's in the audience?
yeah,
Like letting that help you decide what to do is still for me like kind of an abstract thing when it comes to playing an instrument on stage, but it's there. Like I'm still working out where that exactly falls. But also just as a bass player, and I heard Sean Hurley talk about this, because Sean in an interview is talking about the process with when John Mayer was looking for someone to go on the road when Pino couldn't do the gig. So Steve Jordan is playing drums, and Sean was just talking about, I'm going to go into this audition, and like the one person that I'm really going to play for is Steve. Like, as a bass player, if I can make sure the drummer is having a good time, that should be foundational to my priorities. You know what I mean? And I think that that expands to the other musicians in the band. Being a bass player it's a unique role on stage, which it's really almost entirely support and accompaniment. So in that situation, your audience is your other bandmates on stage in a way. And that, you know, that's the kind of thing where you really can feel what works and what doesn't. If you just open your eyes and look around, you just pay attention to the way that people react to certain things you do or you don't do, whether that's good or bad. That made me realize, oh, if I like don't land on one after this fill, everybody's going to feel it and be uncomfortable. Or if I play the wrong chord, like root note under this chord change, everybody is going to know that something has gone wrong. Whether it's immediately looking at the bass player or just a moment of like wobbliness or whatever, like everybody knows something's wrong. That doesn't really exist as much for other members. Like if you play a wrong note, like it's not so jarring as if you're the bass player and you play the wrong root, you know? And the same thing can be said about like time. Like if you're a drummer and like your hi-hat time is just like not the most even, but it should be, like everybody's gonna know. But if you're the saxophone player, like you have more leeway in there to express the time and sit on the time and float above the time, sometimes in different ways, and all that's really cool. But a drummer doesn't get to do that. So there's certain things that, like, as a bass player, I'm afforded or not afforded the liberties or the opportunities to shift what really just needs to happen right now. And that's something that I only found from playing hundreds of gigs and just realizing these things and realizing that, like, oh, if I try to play a bass solo and just think about chord changes, everyone's just going to tune out for a while. But if I can think about melodies, and if I can think about melodies specifically that I know you know, then we're engaging. Then we're really talking.
Yeah, and using like repetition and quotes and like I think simpler ideas is a good way to just reach the audience. Like you said, if they know it, that's like what's going to make their ears perk up.
Yeah.
Rather than if you're playing something fast, I feel like that's when people start to tune out. If you're just shredding all over the fingerboard, there might not be anything to follow there.
Yeah, it's about putting down stuff that they can pick up, and it matters who's out there. It really does. Am I playing for, like I got a great friend, Lori, who's an amazing vocalist in Charlottesville, and she'll come and hang at the Oakers gig, and I know she's super hip. So like, I can play things that I know she's going to hear and appreciate. But also, Butcher Brown goes to Electric Forest, and like, this is a jam band festival scene, and it's 4:00 in the afternoon. Like, you can leave your Louis Armstrong quotes at home because nobody's going to get that here. Yeah. That sort of thing. I try really hard to like let that help inform at least the attitude to which I'm bringing, if not like specifically informing the notes that I play.
Yeah. Now, I guess on the topic of who you're playing for, who might be in the audience, like you were saying before, you get some bad motherfuckers hanging out at your shows. You guys at this point, you probably have some crazy people rolling through. I mean, what's have you been starstruck lately, Andrew? What's like an example of an encounter recently that really had you either excited or scared?
I don't often get to that place. Okay. I have in the past, but it never feels good. So I've tried to find ways to like not go there, because nobody wants that.
Do you mean like you just like nerd out by accident? That kind of like,
Yeah, sort of. Like I remember meeting Thundercat for the first time, and I was
well,
just a little fanboy. And afterwards, I was like, "Oh God, that was so embarrassing." But I really consciously try to not go there because I feel like, I mean, I've experienced that from young musicians where it's like I'm meeting them and they feel so like, oh, and I'm just sort of like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like we can just hang out and like, or we could have a drink, or we can talk about whatever. So I just try to like look at that and like turn it around the other way. But I think in recent the most I've been like, oh shit, like look who's at the gig was the last time we were at the Blue Note. Questlove and Yebba Smith were there, and I didn't know until the set was over, and I was glad that I didn't know. Even though I try to take that other attitude of like, Quest is here, this is great, like I get to play for this guy, but it was definitely like, oh shit, Quest and Yebba are hanging out in the audience. But I got to meet him real quick, and he was super cool. He was super cool and super nice and super friendly, and it made me like relax, and it made me be able to just like be myself a little bit because I feel confident that he would understand and agree with all these things that I'm saying. And so what he did was, well, I mean, Questlove's like a celebrity, so he had to get out of there kind of quick. He was getting mobbed, but he, without going into detail, made it really clear to me in a very succinct manner some things that he appreciated about what I did. He wasn't gassing anybody up. He was like just telling me like, yo, I heard this and this and this, and this was great, thank you. And it was like, it just made me feel like really comfortable and really good. And Quest is like, he's had such an amazing trajectory, but he kind of came up through the ranks, you know what I mean? And he's a lover of the art form, and he struck me as not having an ego or not having this like bravado or like this tough guy thing, which some musicians that are successful, they've got that, I can think of another musician that I'm going to try my hardest not to say this person's name, but he's got that thing where it's like, I'm the shit, you know what I mean? Just like, ugh. And I don't know, I had a good time with him not letting that get to me and just sort of like being like, you might be the shit, but we're talking about what we're going to eat for lunch right now. So like, you want to poke fun at me for what I eat or what I don't eat? Like, yeah. I'd like a cheese taco, please.
Yeah, man. I mean, it seems like Questlove would be like a pretty down to earth guy. Like I've heard him. He always talks about how much of a nerd he is. He doesn't like wear all the expensive stuff, even though he could. He seems like he's more down to earth on those kind of things. And
yeah, he was super cool, and it was a privilege to get to just have a moment with him and know that he came to see us, and it was a super special thing, and it made us all feel so good.
Yeah, it sounds very refreshing compared to people who think they are the shit.
I find I gotta say that for people like that, I find just as much enjoyment out of those types of interactions because it's just so different.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
And because I can't take that too seriously. Yeah. If you're gonna be a dick because of how good you are at music, that's kind of funny to me. And I like funny stuff, so bring it on. Let's have a good time.
Yeah, man. So what was I gonna say? The getting starstruck at your shows.
I think the only other person that like I'm really not gonna be able to just get on their level, and I'm only gonna be a fanboy is I've never hung out with Victor Wooten, but I've always been such like a disciple. I feel like of his and like such a fan since I was like 15 years old. Like since I started picking up this instrument, he was just the guy, and I just appreciate who he is and how he is, and I'm just like I'm looking forward to the time when I get to meet and hang with him. But I'm feeling already like I'm not going to be able to just keep it cool, and
I've
I'm okay with that.
I think I've met him 3 times now. I was freshman year of college. I went to the Jazz Educators Network conference in Louisville, where
Jen,
where he was like the keynote speaker, and
nice.
I didn't even know he was going to be there when I first got there, and I'm like walking through the hotel, and all of a sudden he just like went by me, and that was like the first time I was ever starstruck. I was just like, wait, did he
Yeah,
just go by me?
he's got
I
that
was,
energy. He's got that big, larger than life energy.
and but then I met him at one of the like jams there, and he was like he took the time to just talk to me and was like
Oh
the
yeah,
sweetest, nicest guy, and
I believe it.
it's such like beautiful energy to see out there. But then I saw him. He came to Albany. I played at the College of St. Rose, and I saw him, and they were waiting around to talk to people after. And I said hi briefly. I was very brief, but I could tell I had those like nervous, weird energies.
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, I got to get out of this conversation fast.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you know, sometimes it's just you gotta have those people where it's like, you know what I mean? You gotta look up to somebody so much that you can't play it cool around them.
Yeah, yeah. And I no, I went and saw that show Kill Tony live once, and I had the same thing. I
Oh,
had that
sick.
super nervous energy afterwards, just like like wanting to go say hi, but like no, I shouldn't.
I didn't dare step foot near Dave Chappelle at that Napa thing, partially because of what we're talking about, but also because he was surrounded by some massive security dudes at the whole time. Because this was right after he like got tackled at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh yeah,
This was like just a couple weeks after that. So, so yeah, no, but same thing. I couldn't even bring myself to look him in the eyes,
yeah,
just because
yeah.
it's like, I mean, not only are you like massively celebrity, but also just like top of your game, top of your craft, and just like for me coming up in the early 2000s and like the whole block party thing being so important to me, I was like, that's cool. You can just stay over there. I'm
Yeah,
gonna stay over here.
Plus, you saw
yeah.
that dude's arm who did try to tackle him. What happened to him afterwards? So,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
yeah.
They dude got busted up. They
Oh,
took care of that.
And Brad, we got to watch the time. I think. Right?
yeah, it's time to wrap it up. I mean, just real quick, do you think you'll ever do an open mic? I was curious to ask.
A stand up?
Yeah.
Oh geez. I think the answer to that question is no.
Okay. Well,
But when I do big band shows, I do talk to the audience and I try to make it funny, and it's not. So like I'm on the path to making it funny, you know?
yeah.
There's an element I do try to bring my personality when it's my show, just to talk a little bit and make that part of the thing. And we have a fun moment in the shows where we play a pinball number count from Sesame Street. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But we do all 12, and like you're supposed to drink in between every single one, and it's supposed to be really uncomfortable by the time you're at like 6 or 7 times, because it's like, are we really going to just play this 1 minute song again? And but by the time you get to 12, if you've had all the drinks, then it's actually quite enjoyable by the end, but still really uncomfortable, and I like that.
Yeah, no,
And then we play something else, and I tell some more jokes that aren't funny.
well, very cool. Well, yeah, man, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you again. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you
you doing
guys.
this.
Absolutely, I can't wait to listen back.
Yeah, and please tell the listeners what they should be looking out for. You've got Butcher Brown, Charles Owens, trio and extended band. The beat or the thump tape with Corey Fonville,
Yeah,
Nigel Hall's solo work. Is there anything else I'm missing that you want people to?
I do release my own music from time to time, just under Randazzo with fours, R4ND4ZZO, and I have a beat tape out right now. It's called Andy, and I've got some stuff in the works for the follow up to that. I'm not in a rush to get that out. That's not really the energy of that side of my musicianship, but making beats is a thing that I do, and I enjoy collaborating with people on that. So that's coming, and eventually a proper big band album will be coming, which is just me. I've been in talks with some people about that, and I'm always thinking about what that would look like. But hey, the longer I wait, the better it'll sound.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear it. And all the stuff coming up. I know you got more stuff with Butcher Brown to come soon. You're recording with Charles soon. I'm excited to hear it, man. But thank you again. Listeners, follow Andrew everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you can find him. Please like and subscribe for this video and follow our channel on YouTube because we need it.
You guys need to hit the bell. Let's be real. They need to like, subscribe, comment, and hit the bell.
Listen to Andrew. Thank you.
Smash the bell. Yeah.
But this has been a pleasure, man. It's always an honor talking to you and looking forward to next time.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.